Hey, can you hear it?
No.
Should I do something to it?
Yeah. Put it up by your mouth.
You can tell this is nothing I do at any time in my life.
There we go.
Get better?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, I'm Becky. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Becky.
I've been sober since May 30th of 1990, and I heard in a gentleman say recently, I say that because if I don't say it, you may wonder, that doesn't really go together, and so I'll get to that part in a little while, but I'm glad that the gentleman read the Vision for You, because when I was thinking about doing this, it came to me to read the part in the book about the promises. And when I first was introduced to AA and was told about the promises, I would come into the meetings and I would see them as they are here, and here they're numbered, and I would go back to the hospital or treatment center or wherever I had been, and I would be searching for them in my book. And in the book, they're not numbered. They're in a paragraph. And I was like, wouldn't you just know it? I get the book that doesn't have them in it. But they are, the part about them starts on page 83. And if you are new, they definitely are not numbered. So, and it's also, ironically, it's in the middle of the steps. You're not quite done with them when you get to the promises. It says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will instinctively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And I came from what I originally thought was a fairly normal family with a mom and dad, one brother, 3 sisters, grandma, grandpa. But the longer I stay sober, I realized that it really wasn't that normal, that the things that went on in our house were not, well, we'll just leave it at that for now. My grandma, I'm quite sure her father was a pretty bad alcoholic, because whatever he did with his alcoholism, my great grandma was put into I guess it was an insane asylum back then. It's probably because of his drinking. And then back then, the kids got put in orphanages. So that's where my grandma landed up. And then they were separated, and some got adopted. And then the good thing was, though, my grandma ended up in an orphanage that was kind to her. So that was a good thing. But by the time she was 17, she had been sent back home to help her dad, which God only knows what happened, but she ran away from home with her friend and came to Buffalo and New York, and that's where she became my grandma, but so it makes sense now why she probably taught my mom, alcohol is bad, don't drink alcohol, so it makes sense now. I didn't understand it then because my mom would always be like, well, you don't want to do that, and it's bad for you, and she would never really say, definitely did not have it in our house. And so that would make sense to me now why. My dad, on the other hand, his family, they had alcohol normally. But I think my dad, out of respect for my mom, just abstained until she died. And then, but anyway, so they... So my first drink of alcohol, I didn't know it was alcohol at the time. And I was less than 10 years old. And back then they would send you free samples in the mail of, I guess, medicines and stuff. And some Vicks NyQuil came in the mail. And, and I was old enough at the time that I could read, but I know I was less than 10 years old. And I remember reading the bottle that said the nighttime cold sleeping medication or something. And then I must have drank a healthy dose of it because I remember I couldn't walk and I was crawling up the stairs and somehow got in bed, I guess. But when I look back, it was, our family was probably so dysfunctional. Nobody noticed. Nobody said anything. And then I'll tell you one other story about later on that clued into me. Things are really not really weird here. My mom she wanted everything to be okay on the outside. So people would think everything's fine. And one night, by this time, my sister was clearly off the chain, mental problems, whatever. And so one night we're all eating dinner, and the doorbell rang. I went to the door, and it was the paramedics there. And they said, somebody called and said y'all needed help here. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Ruthie's not at the table. And so... I go upstairs, sure enough, there's my sister and had taken something and called a friend, wham, wham, wham. So that was, now I realize that that's not a normal way to live, but when that's all you know, that's all you know. So, and out of respect, because this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but it does say in the big book things about powerful sedatives and other things. So I was also introduced to some painkillers at a very young age, and they worked nicely. And then my dad would. So I guess it was people where I lived. I guess alcohol was like. People gave it to teenage parties because I remember I was going to a party and I was 16 years old. My dad dropped me off and there was a keg at the party and he knew it and he just said, oh, have fun and be careful. And I was like, oh, does that mean don't spill my drink? I was like, I don't know what, so whatever. So, and then the first job I got, I was 16, I think, and there was a lot of older guys that worked there, and so they would take me with them after work and buy all my drinks, and I enjoyed being with them. They paid for it, but now that I realize it, I could drink a lot. The only time I ever remember feeling even a little bit of what was called a hangover was one time my sisters and I, like, in the town there was bars. I think there was, if you walked a certain street to school, you would have to, I think there was a bar on every, like, you'd have to pass. And so we could, when we were 16, I guess they would serve us. They didn't care, I guess. So we had gone out one night and dancing and drinking, whatever, and we were walking home, and all of a sudden I was like, where's Ruthie, my sister? And there she is, passed out, face down on a snowbank. And I think, now that I think of it, I think she maybe had a slight problem too. I remember finding like empty liquor bottles in her bedroom and stuff, but whatever. So I went to college. My mom got sick, passed away, and I liked alcohol, but I didn't really, I think until my mom passed away, I didn't really use it as like to numb everything that I felt and to just like be drinking all the time. And and it went bad really quick. I was like, somehow I finished nursing school. I was a nurse. I was working, behaving extremely badly. So in our book it says alcoholism is a disease. It's a symptom that we have. So that's how I tried to make things right, was to self-medicate with alcohol. So for a while I kept it so I wouldn't drink until I came home from work. But I wasn't home from work long, and I would start like saying, oh, it was a hard day at work, so I need a little more. And it just turned really bad really quickly. I mean, I can remember I didn't want people to know that I was drinking, so, and now I know that only alcoholics would think like this. I would drink mouthwash, and then I would look on the bottles in the store to see which had the highest content of alcohol, because that was another thing. I didn't want to have to drink. It didn't take long till I needed a lot more. I mean, I don't think beer ever did much of anything. I mean, I would be with guys and they're like, a 6-pack, I'm like, I can't, that's too much volume. I can't do that. I don't know if y'all ever heard of something called ouzo, but it tastes like black licorice, but it's 150 proof. Yes. So you didn't need a lot. Just a little bit would like usually do the trick. And and so then I would be good to go. And some people like to stay home and drink, and I did that sometimes, but most of the time I wanted it so I could do what I needed to do. But it's all kind of a blur now. I went from like going to work, and somehow I started, when I started with the mouthwash, somehow the next thing I knew, I was working on it was a psychiatric place, but they also had alcohol and detox. So we had Cepacol mouthwash for the patients. So this is crazy. This is very crazy. So everyone else in the morning would have their cup of coffee, and I would have a cup of mouthwash out of the storeroom for the patients. And by the time I had to resign from that job, all the mouthwash was gone. And when I look at it now, I think they had to know. They had to know. But the darndest thing was nobody said anything. They didn't say a thing. I mean, when I left that job, well, I'll back up a little. I would work and not work. So I could see maybe a year before that happened that things were not going, things were not going well. So, and by that time I think I might have been to a few meetings, but heard nothing they said. I mean, it was all like, when I heard prayers and stuff like that, I just tuned it out. I wanted somebody or someone to just fix me and make things so I could go. I remember telling one doctor at one of the places, she goes, "So why are you here?" I said, "Well, I have a little trouble getting up in the morning." And she's like, "Everyone does." I said, "Well, and see what I wanted," because when you so alcohol makes you like, okay, I'm ready to go. And I wanted something to wake me up in the morning and make me sleep at night. I wanted to be either wide awake and able to do 90 miles an hour, doing what I needed to do all day long. And then when I'm done, I want to be asleep, stone cold asleep. And like when I had one of my sponsors, she said, one time to me, she said, "You just want peace." And I'm like, I didn't even know what that was. I thought the other day, remember the old bumper sticker? It says, "World Peace." That was about the closest. I mean, I had no clue whatsoever. I wouldn't have known it if it hit me in the face. Because, when you're fighting everybody and everything for all that time, you can't, I couldn't. And I didn't know what was wrong. And so I went through, I don't even remember the first time I ended up in a treatment center. But so the bottom line was, I went to a lot of treatment centers near where I lived. And one of the last ones, I'd run out of ones in my area. Because I would go there and then they'd send me home. And I'd drink and while I was there, didn't get it, didn't listen. So one of the last ones, it was in Pennsylvania, and I always would think, well, this is the end of the fun. So I can remember before I went to this one, I went to the liquor store and I bought, I think it was like a really big thing of cherry brandy. And I drank the whole thing, and I went to this, wherever I was, and they were all blah, blah, blahing about my alcohol level. I don't know what it was, but by this time I was doing blackouts too. Like people would tell me the next day what I did, and a lot of it was really embarrassing. But so anyways, they took me to this treatment center in Pennsylvania, and I remember I would go into the offices of the counselors, and I would take their books and their tapes, and I was like, I gotta figure this thing out. So I'd watch them and watch their videos or whatever, and look at their books. And by this time, I had, it affects your organs too. So by this time, I couldn't pee by myself. So they would have to help me, and it hurt really bad. So I'd be like, please, I have to go. Please help me, And but that's what I did to myself. But I couldn't connect it at all. I didn't connect that with the drinking at all. I thought that was a whole other problem. I needed another doctor for that or whatever. So whatever. So one day they came to me and they said, "We're going to have to send you back to Buffalo because there's nothing we can do for you here." They said, "We can't help you, and you're stealing everything that's not chained down. And I was like, how do they know that? I was like, I thought I was really good at this, but apparently not so much. So, because when you get, for me, when I got, the disease just gets worse and worse. And it's like, well, if I don't want somebody to see or hear me, then they don't. But they really did. So, so I remember they put me on the bus. And I was like, wow, this is a bummer. So I'm on the bus, and I clearly remember seeing this sign, and it said, no drinking on the bus, whatever. No, absolutely no alcohol consumption on this bus, whatever. So they stopped, at 7-Eleven or whatever. I go get some wine coolers. I'm thinking, I'll go in the back. Nobody will know. And so, but they didn't. I mean, I guess either they didn't care or whatever. So I had gone back home, and I was slowly burning my bridges. My family, they had said, everyone told Grandma, don't give her any more money. Do not give her money. You're not helping her. Don't give her money. And I couldn't understand. So this was a while ago, 30 years ago. So I'm drunk 24/7. And then I'm thinking, oh, I have a house now. I have a job. So I said, I need a husband. So in the newspaper, they had these ads back then that said, if you, and I thought, and I would call different ones. And I said to a later person that became a sponsor, I said, I don't know why. And she goes, honey, you were drunk. And they could tell it, obviously. But I just thought that was amusing. So I kind of ran out of options back then. And, people would say, well, why don't you go talk to a counselor or whatever. So I remember this one lady I talked to, and she said, well, they got a place in Texas. And she said, it's, I forget what it was called. I think it was called a Rafa Treatment Center or something. She goes, it's a Christian place. Maybe they'll be kind and help you or whatever. So I said, well, okay, I can go and try it. So some people from the job, they took me to the airport, whatever. And then when I got here, it was in February, and the rodeo was here. And so I was at this hotel, and I was like, and so when you're from Buffalo, the climate is different. So I went swimming in the pool, and people thought I was very odd because it was February. And so somehow I found out about the rodeo, and then I was like, well, this might be more fun than a treatment center. So I was like, well, should I try to get to the rodeo or should I go there? And so as you would have it, I called the treatment center, and they didn't take my insurance. I'm like, So, but I think sometimes God does things for you to get you in the right place. So I opened the yellow page, and I said, well, I'll just try one and see what happens. Well, it ended up to be Cypress Fairbanks or whatever. And one of the people answered the phone. They said, we'll come get you. Where are you? We'll come get you. We'll bring you and whatever. But I didn't trust anybody. I didn't believe anybody. So I packed the suitcase, but I said, I ain't going down the lobby, because if I sign out of here and then they don't come, then so I stayed in the room, but the lady did come get me. And I don't know anything she said to me. I just know she was really nice. And she bought me this red soda from Whataburger or something. And that was the best red soda ever. And and so she took me to Cypress Fallbrook, whatever that thing was. And I went to the first AA meeting in Texas there, and I'll never forget it because I thought, I had this horrible life, and so in the AA meeting, I didn't know how to act, and so I start talking and talking too long, and so finally, some girl with sense says, "Will you please shut up?" And I'm like, "What?" But I shut up, but I wasn't. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I clearly wasn't ready to get it because my mind was like, well, I got to find a place to live and get a job and do this and that. So I borrowed one of the other patients' addresses, and I had some cash with me, and I thought I would, so I snuck out of the hospital and went to the bank, and so me and this other patient were going to do something. I don't remember. I truly do not remember, but I had this other patient, his address, and we were going to use his address and get this bank account, whatever. And so I went to the bank, and I was trying to open the bank account with the money, and so they said, "Well, we need you to talk to somebody." And so they made me go sit in this room, and while I'm in the room, as you would have it, I go through all the cupboards, see what's in there in the refrigerator, and there was some wine, like half a bottle, and I was like, half a bottle, and I was like, it's not even worth it. So I left it there. They put me on the phone with somebody from the CIA. And they're like, "Ma'am, the money that you were giving to the bank account is counterfeit." And I don't know what I told them, but they said they kind of confronted me about the fact that I was at the treatment center. And I said, "Oh no, I work there." And I mean, I was so bad. It was like, "So you're getting fixed up?" I'm like, "No, sir, I work there." And I think they finally just gave up because they knew I was, denial. I was, and so, but the bank released me and I had to walk back there. That nurse, she was mad. And I know now because it was all the paperwork and stuff, she had to do because what I did. But it still took me a while to get it. Back then there was a nurse program, and I think they might still have it. But somehow I got involved in it. And so for 2 years, for the first year, I had to go to an AA meeting every single day. And even if I didn't go every day on one day, then I would have to go 2 to make up or whatever. And so, I completed the inpatient thing, and they found a halfway house for me. So, and then I somehow had my car moved down here. Then they quickly found out that the car, no license, no registration. So I would have to, when I was in the halfway house, I would have to walk by the car every day to go to the bus. And then I'd go on the bus to like day treatment or whatever. And then after a while, then I would look for a job and I just can't believe it. I was just so... But those were the things I needed to do to keep my little self busy, because when I read this book back then, I'm being honest with you. There's another... And I was so grateful when there was another woman in this program that shared the same thing. You could be in the treatment center, wanting to stay sober, but when I read the book, it was like... it meant nothing. It was just like, they had Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. It meant nothing. So, but I heard a few little things that helped so now I see it was God that helped me, because the nurse program that I got into, they insisted that I have a sponsor. I didn't want a sponsor. I didn't want anyone to know anything about me. I, wanted to go through this and get on, but they said I had to have a sponsor. So I found the woman, and then wouldn't you know it, she made me call her. Back in those days, there weren't cell phones, so you could try to text, No, you have to really call the woman. And so every day I had to call her. So I would call her, and then I would be like, oh God, I hope she doesn't answer. Now, if that isn't the weirdest thing for people that drink and do other things, because any other time, it's like, I would want them to answer, hurry up, get what I need, and go on. But for some reason, this one, I didn't want it. I was scared to talk to her. I didn't want to talk to her, but I had to. And so, one of the first things she said to me that was like the reality of this program working was, I had this little job, and I was an angry person. Oh my gosh, I was so angry, but I didn't know I was this angry. And so I had this job at Cafe Express, and I walked from the halfway house to the job, and there was a younger teenage girl. I don't know, maybe she was 20. I don't know, whatever she was. But one night, she left, and then I had to do her work. Well, I don't do other people's work. So back then I didn't. So I was like livid. So I said to myself, okay, tomorrow night, sister girl and I are going outside, and she's going to realize that this doesn't happen again. So I called my sponsor, because that's what I have to do. And so her name was Sandra, and I remember saying, Sandra, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And she said, excuse me? And she goes, do you want to drink again? I said, oh, no, ma'am, I don't want to drink. And she goes, well, then, you have to do what it says to do in our big book. You have to pray for that girl every day for 2 weeks for what you want for yourself. I was like, what? And she's like, yes. And so I said, well, okay, not sure how that's going to help anything, but I did it. And that was like, I will never forget that. It was more than 30 years ago. I remember praying for that girl. I don't even remember what I prayed, because they were all definitely things I wanted for myself, because that's what they told me to do. But it was less than 3 days later, and her and I could work as like, it was like okay. And it was like I was no longer angry at her. I didn't want to like throw her down and beat the crap out of her. It was like, it was amazing. And then the other thing was this sponsor, and my sponsor is like most all the people in AA. She didn't judge me. She was kind to me. And I was so suspicious of her, because, I mean, where I came from, if you did something for me, I could expect you were going to come looking for me, and, it was my turn, And if I wasn't that cool or whatever, and I messed something up, well, then they'd kick me to the curb, and that was the end of me. But she had been so nice and helped me move stuff out of storage, but I was really suspicious of her, But, and I remember her saying, what I needed to do. She goes, I'm going to give you a few things to do. And I said, I just need to stop drinking. She goes, I can help. So she told me. She said, I need you to get down on your knees every night and ask God to help you to not, no, every morning, ask God to help you not drink that day. At the end of the day, you need to thank Him for keeping you sober. And I was like, okay. Now, I had tried this before, but in my own stupid way. And, I mean, normal people do not have a calendar and they make, X's on them for the days they don't drink. And I don't think I ever got more than 2. And they were probably lies. I mean, and because I can remember one time, a normal person does not go grocery shopping in the middle of the night because they can't be still, they can't be in their own skin, and then go into the grocery store. I kid you not. I still remember in my little car I was driving, and I remember getting into the car and saying, I'm just going to go to Wegmans, and I'm not going to steal anything, and I'm not going to drink anything. And I'll be darned if I wasn't in Wegmans not even that long, and there I was in front of the mouthwash aisle, getting something, opening it in the store and drinking it. And I remember thinking, how does this happen? How does this happen? Now I know it's because I'm an alcoholic and I cannot stop. And so she told me to do that, get on my knees, and I thought, it's never going to work, but I'll do it because she's been so kind to me. She was so, non-judgmental, kind, living AA out in front of me. And so I did it. And it worked. No one was more surprised than me. No one was more surprised than me. But the sad thing was, I did it for the alcohol. And then these steps are in order for a reason. I got to step 4. And I knew I started working with her. And I didn't want people to know. I thought, if you know who I am and what I've done, you're going to say, like other places had said, we can't help you, this isn't for you. But thankfully I found out that is not the case. That is not the case in here at all. It just so isn't. But it took me a long time of being dry drunk to figure that out. I walked away from these rooms for a while, and I adopted 2 kids, and it's funny. They say that the time you start putting alcohol in your body, your brain stops maturing. 8 years or so, 8 years old or whatever. So, it's really interesting to me today how until my kids were between 8 and 10, I was a pretty much okay parent. But then once they got older than I was in my brain, then I was lost. And so my daughter, it wasn't so bad, but my son, we had some problems, and it was big problems. And so when I didn't have you people and I wasn't working the steps, you do things, did things, we had the family violence, and in 1 year my daughter left because I was trying to control her. She was an adult, she was 19, but she left. Then when I tried to control my son, we got into it physically. And it was ugly. But everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe this book says, I go through what I go through so I can help somebody else. And so it was a very difficult time. He had to go live at some shelter, whatever, and I was so angry. I was so angry because I didn't know why it was happening. I remember one time the tech or whatever came out there and she gave him some granola or something. And oh, I know, because we were in this visiting room together, and I was so angry at him. I don't know, he went to the restroom, went to get something, and I just took the thing and I just smashed it and crushed it into little pieces. And then he came back and I said, oh, that lady brought you some granola. And, and so he opens it up, and of course it's all in little pieces, and he goes, and he probably, I don't know if he knew or didn't know, but he's like, oh yeah, sometimes they get broken. But we were just so angry at each other, so angry. And it was because of God that he lived there, and they sent this crisis counselor from who knows where, said, oh, you just need to go get some help at Cypress Creek for a while. And that's what brought me back to AA, because I was there, I don't know, telling them some bullshit, but I seen on their little whiteboard there, it said they had AA, and I said, I'll go to AA, that's something to do. And what a gift, because then I started coming here, and I met Kyle Boston, and at the time I'd been sober a while, and I asked her to be my sponsor, and she said, I thought you'd been sober about 2 weeks, and Patsy said, we were all worried about you. And when I started going through the steps with Kyle again, and being willing to just do what the book said, and being honest, it worked. And I'm here to tell you, it didn't work fast, but it worked. And I never thought I would be here and have the life that I have today. I mean, there's a lady in our group, and her name is Marilyn, and she says, how free do you want to be? And I mean, what a gift when I just do these simple steps. And they're not easy. It's not easy telling everybody all your dirty laundry and stuff you did, but it's freeing because, we all make mistakes. But I don't have to drink over it today. I don't have to drink. I don't want to drink. But that took a long time too. More than, sometime within the 2 years. But I needed those 2 years. I needed that paper because I don't know what I would have done. And, it's a design for living. If I do what the book says, and it says, as long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And I hated that part at first. I hated it because I was so it was like I came in here and then people are talking about God. And I was like, okay, so I don't want to offend people, but I always believed in God, but I was very angry at him too. So I considered him part of the problem. So, and I surely did not want to do God's will because I was sure that would be something terribly boring and would ruin my life forever. But today I pray to do God's will. I never thought I would say that. And, it's like, what I was looking for was here all along. It's just that I didn't want to do the simple things that it took. I didn't want to like it's a program of practicing. I have to practice. I don't get them perfect. I have to do it over and over. And I have to, do what it says. The answer is in the book. And when people used to say that, I was like, the answer is in the book. And I used to think all these old people were just, and now I'm one of the old people. But it's such a gift that's been given to me. And I was thinking, that how cool is it that I get to share on the Thanksgiving month, because that was something I learned early in the program too, was being thankful on purpose. Not having to, and in this book, it doesn't say, I used to I used to think, oh, when I feel like it, then I'll go do something, or I'll, but I would want to wait till I felt like it. And then that was what I needed the alcohol for, because I didn't feel like it. And so then when I drink the alcohol, then I feel like it. But this program does it the other way. We act ourselves into right thinking. And I had some bad thinking, really bad thinking. I was pretty sure that, that God hated me. And that was why all these things happened in my life. So it took a while of me saying, like, when I would say my prayers out loud, like this book has several prayers that I say every morning. And I was encouraged to say out loud that God loved me, because I didn't believe it. And it says, we have a loving God. That's what I choose as my higher power, because I had enough of other things. But, and practicing these principles in all our affairs, it's, I'm still learning. And I'm so grateful that I have you people and this program, that I don't have to, I don't graduate, but as long as I keep doing what this says, and helping others and doing what the book says, my life gets better. And I came in here to stop drinking and to, get my son back. But what's been given to me, I never dreamed was possible. Never. I was always like fighting somebody or fighting something, and I've heard it said, it's like you have one foot in yesterday, like beating yourself up. Oh, I shouldn't have did this. Why'd I do that? And one foot in tomorrow, like, well, I can't wait till, I get this part of the house done, get this paid for, get that paid for. And so when I'm like that, I'm peeing on today, and I'm ruining today. And so I heard some old people say a while back, to live in the moment. And it's hard to do that, but when I can just be present. And it took me a while to be present. And a lot of times I'm still not present. I'm like, when I'm at home or work, I'm like, I'm off 3 steps ahead. But it's something I keep practicing on. And I'm so grateful to the people that started AA and to you people that come here, because I had, when I came back in here maybe 4 years ago or so, I was pretty sure that even if I did drink, I wouldn't die. I'd just be left having a miserable life. And that no matter what I did, I couldn't get out of it. And the truth is, I can't. I'll say this and then I'm about done, and I didn't want to see this at first when I was getting to this, I didn't see it in the big book because I didn't want to see it. It says, no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And, the desire to drink has been removed from me. But the other things, the defects of character, I have to work on them. And, I ask God to help me, but then I get things to practice. Now, I don't like that, but, if I can help someone else or help my son, today those things are good they're good and they bring me joy. Before, it was all about me. I was just selfish and just wanted everything from me. It was a miserable way to live. But AA is wonderful, and I'm so great. I'm just so grateful for AA, because I never thought I would have what I have today. And all the friends I have, really true friends. And so I thank you all for being here to help me stay sober.